In this video, I'm going to show you how you can backup, restore, and move your data for the MudPie Creations Child Check-in application. So to make a backup, the first thing you should do is make sure that you are on the computer that's hosting the database. So this is important if you have multiple check-in stations that are all sharing one single database. You want to go to the computer that is the one that has the database locally. You can verify that by checking on the very bottom of the main screen where it says connected to, it should say local database. If it has a different name there other than local database, then you are at a check-in station that's not hosting the database. Okay, so on the computer where the database is being hosted, you can create a backup in one of two ways. The first way is if you go to the Setup button, click on that and choose Database Options. So here you have Create Backup as a button, and if you are on a check-in station that's not hosting the database, these buttons will be disabled. Okay, so you can click on the Create Backup button and it will create the backup, and then it will, after it says that it's been successfully created, when you hit the OK button, it will open a File Explorer window at the location of the MPC back file. Okay, the second way that you can create a backup is if you are on the computer that's hosting the database. When you close the application, then it will prompt you whether or not you would like to create a backup. So if you click on the Create Backup button, then again we see this message that it's been successfully created, and then when we hit the OK button, the Child Check-in application closes and a file window where the backup file was created is opened. Okay, and as you can see, the MPC back file has been created at this file location. If you attempt to open this file, many people think that they can just open it up and they'll be able to see the data in the file. But if you open it in Notepad or some kind of word processing editor, you'll see that it's just a lot of characters that look like garbage characters. That's because this is a binary file and it's not human readable. So it's not something you can open and see your data, and it's also not something that you should click on in order to launch the child check-in application. You should always launch the application from the icon on the desktop. Okay, you should make regular backups of your data on a frequent basis, at least weekly, so that if you have a hardware failure or hard drive um, crash, then you'll be able to restore your data quickly and easily without having to rekey all of the family and children information. So you should always make sure that you move this file off of your computer so that you have it for safekeeping. So you should get a USB drive and use that to store your files off of your computer. So I have a USB drive that's already connected. So I'm going to go to File Explorer and I'm going to go to my USB drive. And mine happens to be drive letter E, but yours may be drive F or G. It really depends on the type of USB drive that you've purchased. Okay, so on this drive, I'm going to create a folder by right-clicking and choosing New Folder, and I'm going to call it CCI Backups for Child Check-in Backups. Okay, and now I'm going to open that folder, and I'm going to switch over to the file window that opened when the backup file was created, and I'm going to click on that file and I'm going to drag it over to the USB drive. So now I have a copy of this backup file on my USB drive for safekeeping. And whenever you disconnect your USB drive, you should always go to the drive right click and choose eject so that that disconnects the drive before you unplug it. Okay, so that file contains all of the family and children and worker and check-in information. But there are also photos of the guardians or children that you'll also want to back up. So if we go back into the child check-in app, and we're going to choose the setup button, and then the very last option is open photo location. So if I click on that, that will launch another file explorer window at the location of all of the photos. So if I click on one directory up, so photos is within the child check-in folder. So I'm going to click on the child check-in folder. And now I will right click on the photos folder and choose copy. And then I'm going to go back to my USB drive folder that I have opened here. And I'm going to go into the CCI backups. And I'm going to right click and choose paste. And that way all of my photos are also backed up. Okay, and now I'm going to eject the USB drive and I will have that all the backups of the photos and the data for safekeeping. Okay, now let's look at how we would restore the data. So let me just say that that's not a common thing that you would want to do. The only time you would really want to use the restore feature is to recover from some catastrophic hardware failure on your computer, or if you're moving your data to a brand new computer that you've just purchased. Okay, so whether you're moving your data to a brand new computer or if you're just simply recovering from a hard drive failure, then the steps that you would first take is to install the Child Check-In app from the original disk or downloaded file. And so as you can see here, I have the Child Check-In app freshly installed, but there is no data. Okay, so we're going to restore the data that we just made a backup of. So to do this, you would go to the Setup button and choose the database options and open backup location. Okay, and so that will open a file explorer window to the place where we need to move the MPC backup file to. So if you connect your USB drive that contains the backup file, and you would go to this PC, choose your USB drive, and then here's the CCI backups folder that we created. I'm going to click on the MPC file and I'm going to drag it over to the backup folder that opened when I chose open backup location. Okay, I can close that window now. And so now I'm going to go back to the setup database options window and I'm going to choose restore backup. So next a warning will be displayed and it's telling you that if there are any check-in records or family or children information that's already in your system, then it's going to be overwritten by the contents of the backup file. As soon as you choose the restore button, then anything that's currently in the database will be overwritten with whatever's in the backup file. So you want to make sure that you really want to restore your data. It's just as if you were copying over a file, it's going to overwrite it. So we're going to choose the restore button. And once it says that it's successfully restored, the Child Check-In application is going to close when I press the OK button. And so then when you click on the Child Check-In icon, then all of your data will be displayed. As you can see, we have our list of families and children, but there are no photos. So we're going to grab the photos off of the USB drive and put them restore those as well. So we're going to press the Setup button and we're going to choose Open Photo Location. Okay, and so here is the Photos directory. And if we go back to our USB drive where the photos are, you can copy all of those by clicking on the first one in the list, holding the Shift key on the keyboard down, and clicking on the very last one. So then I can right click and choose Copy, and then I'll go over to the empty photos file window that's in the MudPie Creations Child Check-In folder, and I can right click and choose Paste. Okay, and so now if I say refresh list, it will display all of my photos. Okay, let's look at one other scenario. Sometimes if you are moving your data to a new computer, you may also have upgraded your child check-in application to the latest version. So if you create a backup file from your old computer and then you restore it on the new computer that has the newest version of Child Check-In, then the first time that you run the Child Check-In application after you've done the restore, you'll see an error message. It says the Child Check-In application is expecting database version 2.106. That may be a different number than what you see. And it says, but the database version is, and then it's a version number that's lower. Then it asks, have you recently restored an older version of the database from a backup? So yes, that's what we just did. So it says, if so, please run the most recent child check-in install to update your database. So if you hit the OK button, then as you can see, the only thing that's available is the Help button and the Setup button. Okay, so all we have to do, just like the message said, is to run the child check-in install for the latest version that you've just purchased, so that your database that you've restored will be upgraded to that version. If you purchase the software on a CD, then you can you can put in the CD into your CD-ROM drive, go to File Explorer, navigate to your CD drive, and then you would run the Setup exe application. Okay, if you have purchased the software as a download file, files are already installed on your computer. So all you'll need to do is go to the File Explorer window, go to Local Disk C, Program Files x86, and then there should be a folder there called Setup Child Check-In. So if you double click that, you'll see this is the same contents that you would see if you had purchased the software on a CD. So you just locate the Setup exe application and double click that to launch the Child Check-In install. So then you would choose yes to allow it to make changes. Okay, and you can say yes to this question if you've created a backup of the database, just choose yes there, and then make sure the repair option is selected. So then you press the next button, and this will just quickly run through the install, and then it will update your database. Okay, so now it's finished. So now when we launch the child check-in application, then it will launch without an error message. And all of our data is successfully moved over to the new computer. So if you've just set up the child check-in on a new computer, or if you've just installed because of a hardware failure, you may also need to set up your Dymo printer settings for the Dymo label printer if you're using temporary badges, or you may also need to run through all the setup in order to connect all of your other check-in stations if you're using multiple check-in stations so that they can connect to the database. Especially if you have a new computer, your computer name has probably changed, so all of your other check-in stations will need to be set up to connect to that new computer.